Welcome, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers, James and Justin back again, and we are continuing our Hindu Saga on the 10 avatars of Vishnu. We are now at number 9. That's right, this is Buddha, and I don't want to get it mixed up with the Buddha from Buddhism because apparently they're not the same from what I've been told, but we're going to find out in this video. We're going to straighten up the story here. So let's take a look.
Dashavatar represents the 10 different incarnations of Vishnu, which were taken to save the earth and its living beings from destruction. This video will narrate to you the story of the 9th incarnation of Vishnu. To know about all the 10 different avatars of Vishnu, watch the playlist linked in the comments below. Born as Siddhartha Gautama, Buddha is regarded as the founder of Buddhism and revered by most as a savior or the enlightened one, who rediscovered an ancient path to escape the cycle of birth and death and attain nirvana. He was born in the northern India near the town of Kapilavastu to a ruler of an Indian tribe of Shakyas. His mother died 7 days.
So what's going on? How is this not Buddha? How is this not
I guess
like
it is. Someone had mentioned, because
Gautama?
when we had originally done the 10 avatars of Vishnu reaction video done by See You in History, they mentioned Buddha, and we were all like, oh, that's an avatar. And then some people in the comments were like, it's not the same Buddha. And I was like, oh, okay. But from this video, it looks like it is.
Okay, let's admit we don't know.
Yeah.
And keep going.
After giving birth to him. It is said that 12 years before his birth, the Brahmins prophesied that he would become either a universal monarch or a great sage. To prevent him from becoming an ascetic, his father kept him within the confines of the palace. Gautama grew up in a princely luxury, shielded from the outside world, entertained by dancing girls, instructed by Brahmins, and trained in archery, swordsmanship, wrestling, swimming, and running. When he came to the right age, he was married to Gopa and had a son with her. He had everything, and yet it was not enough. Once in the streets of Kapilavastu, he encountered 3 simple things: a sick man, an old man, and a corpse being carried to the burning grounds. Nothing in his life of ease had prepared him for this experience. When his charioteer told him that all beings are subjected to sickness, old age, and death, he could not rest. As he returned to the palace, he passed a wandering sage walking peacefully along the road, wearing the robe and carrying the single bowl of a sadhu. In his restlessness, he decided to leave the palace in search of answers to the problem of suffering. After bidding his
It's so fascinating. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, me too.
The story of the one who comes from everything we all wish we'd had.
Yeah.
Arriving at that place in your life where you're like, I got everything. Everything I have.
Yeah.
Why is it not enough? Why is it not enough?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that sometimes, and you see a lot of this. You see, there's everybody, even Elon Musk recently has been talking about like, oh, I'm into psychedelics. Like, and I don't know if that's for party purposes. You know, people go like, well, that's got nothing to do with anything. I'm talking about the amount of people that have achieved a lot in life, have stood out as like big contributors in a lot of ways. And then they get to this point where they're going and doing ayahuasca retreats and they're going and investigating spirituality for once. Like, I don't know, man, I got to talk to a shaman or something.
Yeah.
I got to go see what else there is to do. That interests me. That because you look at it and, you know, on the outset, the grass is always greener, right? You look at somebody that's got everything and you're like, one day I'll be draped in like velvet satin, you know, bed spread with like a tray of all my favorite stuff I want to do and a huge TV and jet skis and all this. One day I'll have that stuff and then it'll be enough. And then you accomplish all kinds of things. You have those experiences and you're like, why wasn't enough? You know, and you know, it would be better if it was your fault. And if you point the finger and you work through all these issues you have leading up to it, and it leads to this development thing. That weighed against somebody that is a sheer conqueror. That's like, I was watching an interview with Donald Trump recently, and he was like, I don't drink. Never drink, never tasted alcohol.
Yeah.
Never touched cigarettes. Like, not interested in pleasure.
Yeah.
Only interested in, like,
power.
I want to be reelected again.
Yeah.
Like, you think of, like, and I'm not trying to say anything negative necessarily about Donald Trump, okay? Don't get it twisted here too much. But I am talking about the conqueror archetype that's not interested in they would wear a nice suit only to intimidate their enemy. You know, I don't give a crap about how this actually feels on my body. I want you to quake knowing that I'm wearing a $9,000 thing. What are you wearing? Do you take your business too? I'm possessed by the spirit of needing to dominate. That's like another way people go with this endless pursuit of more and more power or more and more ego identified, I must succeed stuff. But sometimes, like in this story, it seems like people hit a wall. They hit a wall and they're like, it's not, I gotta go find the truth.
Well, the thing that triggered this is what sticks out to me is that because up until this point, he seemed fine, but it was the wandering out and then being exposed to, it wasn't even him suffering. He saw something and the light went on. He was like, he was disturbed. Like, I got to go figure out what's going on here. There's someone dying. Like, it's not going to, I'm sure questions would have been like, is that going to happen to me? Because maybe something like that, because he was protected from it his whole life. And so maybe this is what happens when someone who's been protected from that for so long gets faced with versus someone who grows up in it and sees it their whole life. It's two different ways of kind of I'm coming to grips with this type of stuff.
Yes, and there's all kinds of parts. I don't know if they'll get to it. Well, they are. It looks like they're about to talk about his wife and child, like leaving his wife and child behind. Yeah. And you're right. Instead of being like, like I pretend like I never saw that. He was instead intrigued and like, what is going on here? Yeah. But to leave that. We're about to hear the rest of the story, but interesting to see, no spoilers involved, whether or not going out into the world and being out of your comfort zone sent him packing back home to like safe, cozy, or if he went all the way down after seeing that. Yeah. Interesting.
His wife and child a silent farewell. Without waking them up, he rode to the edge of the forest. There, he cut his long hair with his sword and exchanged his fine clothes for the simple robes of an ascetic. With these actions, Siddhartha Gautama joined a whole class of men who dropped out of Indian society to find liberation. There were a variety of methods and teachers, and Gautama investigated many: atheists, materialists, idealists, etc. Gautama finally settled.
Very quick point. It's a good point. In at least one of the iterations of the story, there was a prophecy about Buddha before he was born, and they said he's either going to be a great conquering ruler or he's going to be the most holy. He's going to be the greatest. He's going to be the Buddha, essentially. Yeah. Like he's either going to be the Buddha or the enlightened one, the greatest spiritual teacher, or he's going to be a great conqueror. Yeah. And the father wanted to steer him towards being a conqueror. Yeah. Or steer him towards being a great king. He didn't like that spiritual version of it. Yeah. And then but that pairs with what you said about when he saw it, he was like, I got to go figure out what's going on. Yeah. It got in there. Yeah. No matter how much they tried to make him not see it.
Couldn't hide from it.
Down to work with 2 teachers. From Arad Kalama, who had 300 disciples, he learned how to discipline his mind to enter the sphere of nothingness. But even though Arad Kalama asked him to remain and teach as an equal, he recognized that this was not liberation and left. Next, Siddhartha learned how to enter the concentration of mind, which is neither consciousness nor unconsciousness, from Udraka Ramaputra. But neither was this liberation, and Siddhartha left his second teacher. For 6 years, Siddhartha, along with 5 companions, practiced austerities and concentration. He drove himself mercilessly, eating only a single grain of rice a day, pitting mind against body. His ribs stuck through his wasted flesh, and he seemed more dead than alive. His 5 companions left him when he made the decision to take more substantial food and to abandon asceticism. Then Siddhartha entered a village in search of food. There, a woman named Sujata offered him a dish of milk and a separate vessel of honey. His strength returned. Siddhartha washed himself in the Niranjana river and then set off to the Bodhi tree. He spread a mat of kusha grass underneath, crossed his leg, and sat. He sat, having listened to all the teachers, studied all the sacred texts, and tried all the methods. Now there was nothing to rely on, no one to turn to, nowhere to go. He sat solid and unmoving and determined as a mountain until finally, after 6 days, his eyes opened on the rising morning star. And so it is said that he had his realization and found what he was looking for. Therefore, there was nothing to attain, and no longer any struggle to attain it. For 7 weeks, he enjoyed the freedom and tranquility of liberation. At first, he had no interest to speak about his realization. He felt it would be too difficult for most people to understand. But according to a legend, Lord Brahma, the creator, requested the awakened one to spread his teachings. The first noble truth of Buddha stated that all life, all existence is characterized by dukkha. The Sanskrit word dukkha means suffering, pain, and unsatisfactoriness. Even moments of happiness have a way of turning into pain when we hold on to them for longer. Dukkha is noble, and it is the ultimate truth. For the next 49 years, Buddha walked through the villages and towns of India, speaking in vernacular, using common figures of speech that everybody could understand. He taught a villager to practice mindfulness while drawing water from a well. Once, when a disheartened mother asked him to heal her dead child that she was carrying in her arms, he did not perform a miracle, but instead instructed her to bring him a mustard seed from a house where no one had ever died. She returned from her search without the seed, but with the knowledge that death is universal. As Buddha's fame spread, kings and other wealthy patrons donated parks and gardens for retreats. The Buddha accepted these, but he continued to live as he had ever since his 29th year, as a wandering sadhu, begging his own meal, spending his days in meditation. Only now there was one difference. Almost every day, after his noon meal, the Buddha taught and preached his teachings. The Buddha died in the town of Kushinagara at the age of 80. Some of the assembled monks were dejected, but the Buddha, lying on his side, with his head resting on his right hand, reminded them that everything is impermanent and advised them to take refuge in themselves and the dharma, the teaching.
Wow, there's a lot to that story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, that story it seemed a lot different than the other ones, didn't it? I don't know. Maybe it was just me, but that one just seemed particularly different. I don't know. Maybe more relatable because it just seemed like a very real, human, relatable story. A lot of the other avatars, you know, they have like superpowers. They have like, and there's things that I haven't experienced, but like,
yeah, he like it even made a note that he like, and he didn't do a miracle here.
Yeah. Like, yeah. It was very just grounded and real.
And who was it that came to him and was like, you know, because he was like, didn't want to teach at first, and it was like, hey, you should teach. Which deity came to him?
Brahman.
Right, and that felt sort of like shoehorned in.
Yeah.
And Brahman was there.
Yeah.
And back to the story of Buddha. Like, it's just unique in that way compared to the other ones we've looked at. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but still, they're all great stories. Another one that you can take so many lessons from. I like the mustard seed. What is with that special mustard seed? You know, because like, what was it Jesus that said? You know,
faith
the size of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. The mustard seed shows up again, right?
One thing that stood out to me, particular in this time, is that when he sat down with the fortitude of a mountain or whatever, like the unmovableness of a mountain.
Yeah.
I love that they pointed out that he had nowhere else to go. He had no more teachers to go to. He was like, well, I'm just going to eat this milk and honey. And he sat under the Bodhi tree, and it was only upon like having no more stones to turn over that it was like, I'll wait, 6 more days. And you can look more into that story. There's other versions of it that go into more detail.
Yeah. The only thing that I could see that might like be a bit of a hindrance right there is that there's a lot of people that analyze these stories that feel that like that's how the story has to go. Yeah. It has to be that awful. It has to be like that ridiculous in order, and it doesn't. There are, you might sit down in a park one day and it might just dawn on you.
I'm a big mimicker. I'm such a mimicker of things. I have been ever since I was a kid. I saw something I like, I mimic it.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of us are. I think a lot of us mimic things, and sometimes you get into spirituality and imagine a spiritual guy. Most of you are imagining like a type of guy. Yeah. Imagine a punk rocker, and you can imagine a type of person, right? Mm. But you don't have to be, in fact, you can't be another Buddha. You can't be another Jesus, but you can be a freaking 100% you. Yeah. And you can be the most shiniest you there's ever been with a whole new doctrine to teach of. And I think the universe would glory at that. I think it would be like, hell yeah, be exactly you, because you've lived some things, and the way you tell the story might be just that much different. Yeah. So you don't have, like you said, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. But anyway, hopefully you guys liked our reaction on this. It looks like we only got one more to go, so make sure you stick around for that one. And, hit that like, subscribe, share us with a friend, and hey, everyone, till next time, stay spiritual.